Well, I want to begin with a quote this morning. I always like quotes, and it seems like the older I get, I like quotes that are tend to focus your mind, your energy, almost like short sayings. Here's one that I found by St. Augustine. He was a church father back in the 300s, so 1700 years ago. We're still talking about him. So he said these words that I thought that can apply to us as we're trying to apply these lessons on patience. He said this. I said it in Latin, but in English, St. Augustine, here we go.
Do it in English for us.
Be always displeased at what you are, if you desire to attain to what you are not. For when you have pleased yourself, there you abide. Okay. Be always displeased at what you are, if you desire to attain to what you are not. For when you have pleased yourself, there you abide. I don't know if you've had this experience or mindset as we've been talking about patience. Yeah, good truth. But I'm there. You know, I'm doing pretty good. I'm showing patience. I got some interesting tidbits along through these lessons, but yeah, I'm not bad. There you abide.
Your lesson last week helped me this week.
Good.
Really.
Good. Very good. Well, this is our last lesson on patience, at least as in a class format. I thought this has been helpful to slow down as we talk about patience, because in the church world, I've been in it for now over 30 years. I was raised a Lutheran, but when it comes to evangelical faith and evangelical church, our opportunities to really go in depth on a particular subject are limited, honestly. And sometimes we'll have them in a Sunday school class, but yet even in a Sunday school class, we try to, if we're going through quarterly, you got to hurry up and get to the next lesson and so forth. And I found it beneficial to take several weeks and talk about a subject that is very applicable to our lives. Every one of us has the opportunity on a daily basis to either show this or not show this, because we interact with people, right? And unless we're a hermit and we're not in lockdown mode, last time I checked, we're all flowing about freely with people. And these lessons on patience, I know personally, it's almost, this is our last time, our last lesson, and I'm really going to miss it. I've been mulling around this material for several months, and I'm reaching a point where I'm moving on to something else in my mind so I can focus on kindness. And it's like I'm having a somewhat of a difficulty with the lesson, trying to wrap it up, because I still want to think about it. It's like I've developed a relationship with patience, and now I'm having to temporarily lay him aside. Not sure. Scriptures say, let patience have her perfect work. So I know I think about my wife, so that this isn't patience and my wife aren't in competition. But do you understand what I mean?
My wife does.
She does?
Yeah, she's gonna have a hard time letting loose of her patience, because she's brought your lessons into my life on a regular basis.
She just shows you the paper and says,
I'm working on it.
all right, so maybe these lessons have opened your mind to this subject of patience. Maybe you have begun to see life through this lens. You now see the opportunities. You see what impact patience can have, not only on your life by experience from others, but how through patience can make others grow. And maybe there's some thoughts in your mind like, I'm ready to start this journey, or maybe I'm on this journey, but really I want this in a deeper level. And I feel like that's where I'm at here today. And so with this lesson, what I'd like to do in this lesson is to prepare you, to remind you, to make you alert that there's obstacles along the way. There's hindrances that you will face on your journey towards patience. There's pressures. At times, it'll make you feel like you're all alone. It'll make you wonder, is this even worth it? When you see the whole masses of people and energy and mindsets are going the complete opposite direction, you begin to wonder, is it worth it? So today with this lesson, I want to just make you aware, and as a reminder to you and also to me, of some of the obstacles you may face on this journey of this most excellent way. This question, what are some hindrances to patience? What are some obstacles? What are some reasons why we are not more patient? What are we valuing above patience? They all tend to be asking the same question. Why are we not seeing more of patience? Why are we seeing more impatience? What are some hindrances and so forth? So there's different ways that we can answer this question. There are different approaches that we can take, and we could come up with 101, so to speak, different reasons why that there's so much patience, or there's hindrances, so much impatience, excuse me. So here's how I've tended to answer these questions. I first looked at what is the definition of patience, and we saw that there were two main components to patience. There's a time element, and there's a suffering element. Maybe if we can look into those a little bit more, we can see, well, maybe there's some potential hindrances to, or reasons why we might not be as patient as we need to be. So that's what I've done. And then I've looked at some other lenses after that. So the first one, let's look at the time element. If patience is waiting, and it is, that implies that there's time. Because waiting implies time. So if we take away time, it'll make it very difficult to be patient. All of us have the same amount of time every week, right? Wally had, let me guess, you had 7 days this past week to use since last week.
Correct.
7. You had 7 since last week?
6.
6. Okay, you did have 7, trust me. I know you're getting older, but you had 7. All of us have the same amount of time, right? But it's what we do with that time makes the difference. I find that, and this is from personal experience, I find that one of the reasons why it is so easy to be impatient with one another is because we don't have time. We think we don't have time. If I don't think I have time, because my schedule says I need to be doing this, this, and this, I don't have time to listen to what that person has to say. Because they're interrupting me, right? Isn't that how we phrase it? They're interrupting. Because I have to do this, this, and this, and it's 8:30, and by 9:30 I have to be here, here, and there. How can I spend time and be patient with someone else when they're wanting to talk to me? My mind is just going in all the things that I have to do. Does that make sense? You guys out there? Ladies out there? Time. No time. I want to say an abrupt statement here, but let it sink in.
Be patient.
How about this one? Most impatient people are overscheduled, overcommitted, and overstressed. Okay? think about that for a moment. Yes, sir.
In praying though in the morning, I'll say, let it be your will. So I need to be patient in case something happens during the day where my time schedule doesn't, my time schedule,
Yes.
God's time schedule is different. So being patient, something might happen, you just have to get over it and continue on. Because you ask, be your will.
That's very good. Just allowing that resignation that something else could happen today, allowing a buffer. This is what I have planned, but honestly, Lord, this is what you have planned. I like that. Let your will be done. Most impatient people are overscheduled, overcommitted, and overstressed. I think one of the hardest things for a Christian is to say no. What I mean by that is you as a Christian, your heart wants to help people, wants to reach out, wants to get involved, wants to seize a ministry that needs help, sees an outreach, sees an opportunity to service is needed, and the tendency is yes, yes, yes. And how often is that? Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. We promise, and then we become overcommitted, isn't it?
How does the saying go? If you want something done, get somebody who's busy.
Yes.
But Don, I think the older we get, and the more we realize our own personal gifts that God bestowed on us, it's easier to say, no, I'm really not the person you want. People can ask you and ask you and ask you, but if you have your, focus your wedge down to what your gifts are that God's given you, it's so much easier to say, I'm not the one you want. It's been easier the older I get to say, I'm not really the one you want.
Very good. Okay, that's very wise advice. But for those of us that aren't listening to that advice, how easy it is to say yes, yes. Especially if we would have a tendency towards wanting others' approval of who we are as a person. So, let me, she brought up something. Here's some potential questions to ask if before you agree on a request. Who else have you asked? What is involved? Why are you asking me? How important is this to you? What is the consequence if I can't do it? Why am I the best person for this? Let me tell you a story. If you're having difficulties with maybe saying no, or if you've said no to helping someone and you're really struggling with it, instead of, maybe there's an opportunity that other things in our schedule can go and we can prioritize a little better. So I have a fellow colleague that's a manager, and I was talking to him this past week. He has 2 children. He has a 16-year-old and a 3-year-old. Both are boys. Had an interesting relationship. Just brief backstory. His first wife who had a 16-year-old. She died of an overdose and from drugs, and left him with just his son. And he remarried and had a son, a 3-year-old now. The oldest is 16, as I mentioned, and he is very good at soccer. Right? Now, soccer is, he is 6'4" and growing. So anyone know a potential position that would be very advantageous for your height when you play soccer?
Go.
Hey, you got it. Okay. So he is, I guess, very good at his soccer as a ninth grader. Maybe he's 15. Yeah. So as a 9th grader, he's very good. And different schools, colleges, they can't approach you yet, because of his age. He's limited, so the schools have to go through the coach, and then the coach sort of tells the parents, hey, now as soon as he turns 16, I think it is, you can directly interact with these coaches. That's the NCAA rules. But now he's getting a lot of attention from various schools, according to what his father is saying. But he also has a 3-year-old. And I had learned recently that his 3-year-old is now engaged in sports. T-ball. Okay? And so I was aware of that. We had talked about that in the past, and all the different activities that and the requirements for time that it's placing upon him to attend his 3-year-old's T-ball practice and games. So this past week I interacted with him, and I knew where I was going, but he didn't know yet. And so I said, hey, concerning your kids, I said, are any schools looking after your kids? You know, any colleges after your kids yet? And immediately he says, oh yeah, you know, my son, and you know, all these schools are interested in it. I said, no, not your oldest, I said your youngest. And I said that sort of joking, and you got a little kick out of that. But I was somewhat serious about it. Because he's serious about it. At 3 years old, there is practice for T-ball, and then there's games. And he has to go and go and go and keep up with that. I think it's activities like that if we're feeling we're stressed out, maybe there's too many in our schedule. I know some are older here. I don't know how many grandkids you have. But
Try 6.
6. You know the potential running around, right?
Try about 10 games a week. Okay.
Can you see the pressures that we have in our culture?
Yeah.
Patience is, well, that's not so important. But these other things are very important, aren't they? And how, in the midst of our busy schedules, we have to do this, run around. Again, I'm not against you. I hope you understand that. But you trying to put it in a big picture perspective here. What's the important thing? Be patient as you're going through this. So, a potential hindrance, feeling that we don't have time, that in the midst of our rush to do this and this, John Wesley said he didn't think a Christian could be hasty and live in haste and rush around. Because he didn't think rush and peace could walk together in the same heart. Something to think about. Next one, despising suffering. Despising suffering. So we saw that another component of patience is suffering. Maybe it's a minor inconvenience. We talked about those last time. I'm sure we have all had those this week. Minor inconvenience. Or maybe it's a major personal loss, tragedy, or betrayal. James 1, chapter 1, verse 2 through 4. My brothers, count it all joy when you fall into many trials. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith works patience. But let patience have her perfect work. 7 words there. But how difficult those 7 words can be. Let patience have her perfect work, so that you may be perfect and entire, lacking in nothing. So we looked at time, the element of time. But what about suffering? Again, from personal experience, if I develop a hardness to suffering, that I don't want to feel any pain anymore, and if I don't want to face that person because of the amount of pain, that's gonna be very difficult to have patience, right? Isn't that how it works? Sometimes we can develop a resistance to pain. I get it, I understand it completely, it hurts, that's why. So consider that. Next one, not giving all diligence to increase it. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 5 through 10. Remember Chris's lesson on this? 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 5 through 10. Giving all diligence. For this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control or temperance, and to temperance or self-control patience. As you move on in this section of 2 Peter, we find that he puts it right back at us. Giving all diligence. As if it's your responsibility. You've got to feel this. You've got to give all diligence to add this. Without it, it won't add. So he puts it back at us, as you and I, and says, it is your responsibility to give all diligence. One of the, I think, a great hindrance or an obstacle is right here, not giving all diligence. At best, we're giving part diligence, if that's possible. But this idea of every opportunity, he's saying, make every effort. Those are Peter's words. Make every effort to add patience to your daily life. Make every effort. And he says the reason why we need to do that is so that we can make our calling and election sure or certain. Remember how Chris was bringing that out? How through, if we finding ourselves giving all diligence, making every effort, desiring that this would increase, that's just giving us assurance of your calling, giving us an assurance of that election. And he says, if you can, and if these things be in you, he just listed, if these things be in you and abound, implying you know what they are, and you know that they're abounding. If these things are in you and abound, they make you so that you are fruitful. And he goes on and says, and if that's the case, an entrance, a wide open entrance, shall be ministered unto you abundantly into the everlasting kingdom of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
It's interesting that this should come from Peter, because as an apostle, we find in the Gospels, he's very hasty and quick action. He wasn't patient, he learned the hard way.
And now he's encouraging us, make every effort. I wonder if that's how he got it.
I love you.
Yes. Make every effort. Giving all diligence means to take advantage of every opportunity to grow in patience. And since you and I interact with people on a daily basis, there are multiple opportunities to grow in patience every day. I think we need to be reminded, this phrase here, giving all diligence, laboring, it reminds me of the old Methodist preacher, Francis Asbury, said, in 4 words, summarized all of life: labor now, rest hereafter. Labor now, rest hereafter. That's what life is going to be like here. Give every effort. Because later on, guess when you retire, then you can rest. That's what I hear. That's what I really hear. It gets, your schedules get restful, peaceful. You can do what you want. Such an opportunity for patience with one another that you have all the time. I sense that from from the elderly. All right. That's actually been something I pondered, and I'm really somewhat surprised about.
Cause it'll be, well, since you're retired, you don't have anything to do, so would you?
That's where that thing that Kathy was saying, that you should speak up about what you can and can't do.
Yeah, that's right. Or don't answer your phone.
Yeah, I know of, this is sort of off the topic, but the greatest, I've read this and heard it, the greatest productivity hack is 2 letters. And famous CEOs have those 2 letters on the right behind their office chair. No. Because they recognize that for them, they need to say no all the time. Their job is to focus. They need to have their mind sharp. They need to have their mind being able to wrestle with the important things. And so that's what they found to be the best way to keep them focused. No. And you can say that nicely. Not giving all diligence to increase it. How about this one? Unbelief or lack of desire. If we don't believe that this patience is possible, then why would we expend effort to seek what is impossible? Why do we do that? You know, we saw what this patience is, but if we really don't believe that God can do this in my life, can really help me to be patient, if I don't believe that God can increase my patience, like right now, if I don't really believe that, why would I expend energy for it? Why would I hunger and thirst after righteousness? I don't even believe this is possible. And that's a great hindrance for why people aren't growing in this patience. They just don't believe it's possible. It's because that's all they see around them is impatience. You know, sometimes we just need to see something or someone that is just a little different than we are. We just get used to how we see things. And all we see out there is impatience. That's all we see. That's all we know. But if we come across someone or we read about someone that had a patient response, we can see it and say, yes, I think that is possible. Lord, help me. Help me. But I think unbelief and lack of desire. Blessed are they that mourn. Yes, over others, but yet mourn over my lack of patience. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. How about this for a hindrance, a potential side road? Thinking that we're on the right path, but when we look back, I think it was impatient. How about this one? Overcorrection. Overcorrection of others. I'm going to need to explain this, so be patient with me here. All right. So, John chapter 1, verse 14. Now, this is something from personal experience here, so hopefully you'll bear with me here. John 1, chapter 14, the last phrase says this. John tells us that we beheld his glory of the only begotten Son, Jesus. He was full of grace and he was full of truth. Jesus struck that perfect balance between showing grace to people and showing truth to people. It's almost like a very narrow road. Very few are walking on this road. On either side of this narrow road are great ditches. The one ditch is grace without truth. What is that? That is not speaking up, not sharing good truth or good because of fear of what people would say. So we tend, because it can be offensive or whatever it is, we would fall off into that ditch and try to be gracious, but without saying any truth to it. On the other side of the ditch is truth without grace. The Pharisees were experts in this. And those that hunger and thirst after righteousness can easily slip into this ditch too, where they have truth without grace. There's a tendency to overcorrect. I went to Bible college in my younger days, and I remember that in our senior year, we had to come up with a motto. A motto to sort of capture our identity as the class, and I was involved in coming up with a motto to sort of summarize who we were as, not only who we were, but who we wanted to be. I had some knowledge with Martin Luther, because I had studied him in the past, and there was a quote by Martin Luther that got my attention, and I presented that to the other people, and I said, what about this one? And it became our motto. That seemed to capture just who we were, who we wanted to be, just a distinct, it was our identity. And that's, at least I took it personally, and I said, you know what, this is who I want to be. And it was this motto. He said, peace if possible, truth at any cost. Now, as a young, zealous Christian, I was all about that. Peace if possible, truth at any cost. If there was a way that I could summarize who I was or what I was wanting to be, it was that right there. I tended to focus on the last thing, right? Truth at any cost. Because I didn't think really peace was possible. I wasn't seeing it, and I was so zealous about what the truth was, as standing for what I thought was God's word, and it just seemed like no one else was taking this way. Peace, if possible? Not really. Patience? I think I saw that as maybe compromise. To be patient with people? I already told them what the truth was. Well, I don't need to tell them again. Listen, if they didn't listen the first time, they're not going to listen again. Peace? That's not possible. Truth? Whether it's me or nobody else, I'm going to be truth. Truth at any cost. I really like that, any cost. Because as a young, zealous Christian, I like that. I was really going to give it all, my all, to uphold the truth.
What about an old zealous Christian?
Eddie needs a
Those
t-shirt.
old guys can, truth at any cost comes across pretty strong for us too.
Yes, it can.
And we haven't seen a whole lot of peace, so I'm looking at truth more than peace in my end.
That's right.
That's true.
No, I think that is, as I've studied this further, I begin to see that how I've looked at my past and my interactions with other people, I didn't value patience. I didn't see that as even worth even, it didn't even register. Truth was all I was about. Everyone had to believe just exactly how I how I thought it was. And I was trying to be sincere about it. It's not just, hey, you gotta believe what I believe for some kind of control issue. It was just simply, no, I am so determined and sure that this is what God's word said, then if you don't believe it, I mean, that's your problem. Yeah. There's a time for correction. Our children need to hear, okay, we're not doing that again. There's a time for correction. And there's a time for patience. Jesus somehow was able to put the boat together. He was full of grace. At the same time, he was full of truth. every interaction he had with people, the woman at the well, Nicodemus, you see these two, what we think are as opposing principles, things that are in conflict. They're actually brought together in union in Jesus. As I said, if it's up to us, we tend to take one and not the other, and push the other to extreme to the neglect of the other. But somehow Jesus, he was able to strike this balance. And that's very attracting to me right now. To find that balance. Remember the terrible parable. Matthew chapter 18, verse 23 through 35. Remember that both of the servants said, "Be patient with me, and I will repay." Just be patient with me. Is anybody saying that to us recently?
No. Not my life, I'm sorry.
I think sometimes you'll hear that. Maybe not those words, but I think every husband, every wife, maybe they don't verbalize it just like that, but just this idea, be patient with me.
I thought you meant be asking somebody to be patient with me. I see where you're going with it now, I'm sorry. I got it.
Be patient with me. That's just what you're saying.
Thank you.
I will repay you. You got the idea.
I got it.
As we look at this parable, we can look at it from so many different angles. But Jesus is talking about forgiveness. He's talking about patience. And as I look back at my life, I think I put a lot of people in spiritual prison. They might not have said to me, "Be patient with me, be patient with me." But I think it was a yearning that they had. And whether they physically said it to me or not, I just put them in prison. You'll pay. I need you to have some time to correct. I need you to have some time to just feel the consequences of your actions. I need to put you in prison for a little bit. I need to let you feel what it's like. I want you to have some pain. And Jesus is giving these as a lesson to us, I think. That tendency to sort of put people in a spiritual prison, take away their liberty, take away their freedom, and say, you've got to pay. You've got to pay. And I'll make sure of it. You know how much that cost me? You know the pain that cost me? You're going to pay. Now, they might be walking about and enjoying the songs, and they might be enjoying the service, but in my mind, in my heart, they're in prison. They're in prison. I'm taking away their freedom.
That sounds like a forgiveness thing to me, John.
That's why Jesus is saying this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. Jesus is, because someone came to him, Peter, your boy. Peter said, how many times does my brother need to come to me and I forgive him? These parables are so weighty. Something we have to think about. We listen to them, but take that with you. Last one, quick to anger. Quick to anger. We're talking about hindrances to patience, hindrances to grow, quick to anger. Remember that there is sin in being quick to anger, not in being angry. Now, Brent touched on this a good bit this morning, and we'll have a lot to say about this when we encounter the love is not easily provoked. But the sin is in the quickness, not in the anger. Quickness to anger. What does that do? quickness to anger, it makes us swift to judge without hearing all the facts.
You can get you in trouble really fast.
Yes, it can. It makes your passions take over rather than your spiritual mind. It makes you want a stricter punishment than you would want yourself. And so God urges us, be slow to anger. It doesn't say never be angry, just be slow to it. Of all the attributes that God has, that He's revealed to us, He wants us, He shares with them, except for one. Of all the attributes, mercy, patience, power, purity, holiness, righteousness, knowledge, all these attributes He wants to share with us. But He says, there's one that's mine.
Vengeance.
One that is mine. I don't want you to have it. I'm not even going to help you develop it. I'm not going to even spend some time with you and cultivate that and teach you how. He's actually given up. He doesn't, he just knows how we would treat that, how we would handle vengeance. So He says, this is mine. Respect that. And respect that means don't do it, right? Let me take care of it. Isn't that what Abigail was saying to David? Let God take care of all your, and when God has taken care of all your enemies, she handled it so beautifully. This quickness to anger. We'll have more to say about that in the future. All right, so I have a way to review. We've said a lot about patience, so I'm going to give you the top 10 things I want to share with you and lead with you about patience. We're going to do. Number 10, and we'll count down. Remember. So these are things I want you to remember about patience. The top 10 things about patience I want you to take with you. First of all, remember what Fred Rogers said to the suffering. Remember that? Those of you who were here for that story? Would you pray for me as much as you are suffering? You must be so close to God. The next time you're with Him, please mention me. Remember that. By the way, Fred Rogers died when he was, I think, 72 or 73. He learned a year before he had a terminal cancer that they really couldn't do anything with. So he died relatively younger, 73. One of the last conversations he had with his wife, he knew he was dying. It was at nighttime. And he approached his wife near the end of his life and said, "Am I a sheep?" And she said, "Fred, if anyone was a sheep, you were." That's powerful, isn't it? Our wives, do you ever wonder that? Am I really? Make your calling and election sure. He was just making sure. Am I a sheep? Remember that. Number 9, he that is patient. Remember this. Number 9, he that is patient is of great understanding. If I can just take that with you as a motto, as a saying. It's from Proverbs. He that is patient is of great understanding. And she that is patient is of great understanding. Remember that patience gives you the understanding to know when to correct and how to correct. It is through patience first. Patience knows when to be angry. It is patience. He that is patient is of great understanding. Remember, number 8, remember Abigail. While in her home, she received some unexpected and terrifying news David, son of Jesse, is coming with 400 armed men to murder our master Nabal and his household. Her patience guided her in that chaotic and intense moment. She understood what David truly needed. Remember Abigail. I was talking to my daughter afterwards of that lesson that we did on Abigail, and I said, would it be nice to somebody get Abigail on tour for our young ladies as a role model? Look out, Taylor Swift, huh? But here's someone that I think our young ladies and older ladies should model after. Abigail. Remember her. Number 7, put this on your bucket list. You've heard of bucket lists, right? Those extravagant places, those experiences where we're jumping off a 100-foot cliff and whatever we're doing, or we're taking a ride to the moon. All these bucket lists of people. Here's one for your bucket list. That it would be an honor to overlook an offense done to you. The sooner the better we get to that bucket list. Maybe we'll do it again and again. Number 6, he that is a master of patience is a master of everything else. I wonder if Paul started with patience for a reason. Our tendency, number 5, our tendency to overcorrect others may be masking our impatience. Number 4, the root of patience is waiting. It's waiting on God. It's waiting through suffering. It's waiting on others to improve. So the root is waiting. Number 3, that patience plays a key role in creating an environment for people to grow. In general, impatience does not achieve the results we are looking for in others. Have we found that yet? Impatience does not produce the results that we are looking for in others. But we continue to do it. Number 2, patience, which is love, takes a long time to become angry or incensed. There was a question that was brought up. Is there an end to patience? How long should I be patient? And the question is there a proper end to patience? And I believe there is. God has one. He has an end. His patience does have an end. Brent talked about this morning. And if we could think about that for a moment. His patience over a period of time, at its end, it is pure fury. It doesn't have any more patience anymore. It's judgment. And a final judgment. Depart from me, ye workers of iniquity. Patience takes a long time to be angry and incensed, but beware of the end of God's patience. And number 1, I want to leave you with is this. Look for opportunities to show and grow in patience. Give all diligence, because patience is needed everywhere. Patience is needed everywhere. So that's the end of my thoughts to you at this point on patience. Would anyone else have something they would like to share? Yes.
He told me years ago, like you would know, never to pray for patience. Did you hear that? Did I dream that? My grandmother tell me? I don't know, but because if you did, then you would get trials that came with patience. So I think that for patience.
Mhm. Do you think we should?
I'm scared too.
I think once I've heard that, I have. I think once we realize what patience is and how it is focused on other people. And then just as God gave of himself for us, we give of ourselves to help that other person. And to do that may require us to go through trials. But as we see at the end that this is for others, it helps us to go through.
Speaking about helpfulness, believe it or not, it has been helpful to me. I look back on my life and I could see where I had great examples of patience and impatience. My mother was the pure picture of patience. She put up with me, and she put up with my dad. And my dad, I love my dad beyond belief, but I'm telling you, he was impatient. And every time my mother would look at me, and she'd say, you know, I've got 4 children and you're the most like your dad. It wasn't say, oh, you're the most like your dad, but she'd say, you're the most like your dad. You know, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So this is brought to mind many years back of how I've had good examples of both. And I don't get stressed out. I let it explode and I'm over with it. But rarely have I ever shown true patience like I should. And I'll think before I act. And that's not, after 77 years of it, it's not have to change overnight. But I am going to try to do better. And these things right here in the list and stuff is really what you've done. You've done a wonderful job presenting this to us, and I'm thankful to you for that. And I know probably there's others in the class that it's touched too, but I just want you to know that I've gleaned from what you've given us, and I've taken it to heart. And we'll see if there's any positive results down the road.
We shall. Okay.
I'm working on it.
All right. So that is, I just want to leave you with in preparation for our discussion next week on kindness. That is the next one. Love is patient. Love is kind. Kindness. Here's something that I've found here. It's a poem. Kind hearts are the garden. Kind thoughts are the roots. Kind words are the blossoms. Kind deeds are the fruits. So take care of your garden and keep out the weeds. Fill it with sunshine, kind words, and kind deeds. Another said, if you want to have attractive lips, speak words of kindness. Someone funny said, the average dog is a nicer person than the average person.
Well, that's just true.
Dog can be beaten and come back and believe.
And here's another one. This is Mother Teresa. She said, I would rather make mistakes in kindness and compassion than work miracles in unkindness and hardness. Yeah. So what we're going to do next week is we're going to cover this subject of kindness. It's actually our last week together before we switch over. And so we're going to try to cover kindness, and we're going to try to use another illustration, another story from the life of David. This one's just about as on par with the illustration with Abigail. This is his interaction with the son of Jonathan. His name was Mephibosheth. 2 Samuel chapter 9. And we're going to learn about a covenant that he had with his father, Jonathan. Two men entered into a covenant of kindness. Yeah, that's what these two men did. A little strange, right? Not what two men do these days. But they had a covenant of kindness that extended beyond their lives. We'll talk about that because it gives us an illustration of all the aspects of kindness and maybe some unkindness as well. Let's bow our heads for prayer here. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed